The show starts with the two guys who got knocked out by Nami and Luffy, while they were stealing the Grand Line map in Part 1. There are 3 goons from the Works gang trashing the naval base in the city of Asdaf. The rest of the soldiers are running away, hiding from them. But one of the goons, named Sandy, isn't just any thug. She's the kind who puts her hands anywhere she wants and walks around with total confidence, not caring about who attacks her or tries to get close. She grabs whoever comes near and kills them without even letting them get close. Then she goes up to the last soldier and asks him, "Where do you put the dead?" That's because they're coming for one of their own, number 7 in the Works gang. Just so you know, my friend, this guy was the one who killed Zoro in the first part because one of their guys wanted to join the crew, but Zoro refused, so they killed him. Now what are they gonna do to Zoro? Will he be able to handle them or not? That's what we're gonna find out in the show. Then they learn from the last Navy soldier that Zoro is heading to the Grand Line with his captain Luffy. On Luffy's ship, the situation is hectic. Sanji is cooking, Usopp is finishing up some silly bombs, and Nami is focused on the Grand Line map, figuring out how to reach the treasure. Then Sanji suggests they do some shopping before heading to the Grand Line, which is full of dangers. Plus Luffy has a stomach wound, so they need to get some food. Yusuf keeps refusing and goes to Zoro saying, "Look man, these guys want to shop and keep bothering you." Zoro replies, "Well, I'm thinking I need 2 swords too, cause I'm only carrying 1. Yusuf tells them, "I'm done. I'm gonna go to the captain, he's the one who will back me up." Then he calls Luffy and tells him they want to head to Log Town, which is full of dangers, and they plan to settle things there. Luffy refuses because he wants to go to the Grand Line to find Kenzel and Bess. But Nami tells him, "You know the Pirate King, Gold Roger, died there." Luffy gets excited to see the place where the Pirate King met his end, so he orders them to set off there on the day of the execution. Hey buddy, in the first part we saw Gold and Roger get executed, but that day there was a fight between Roger and Garp, affected by it, ordered the execution. At that moment, Roger tells Garp, "I have a son, I want you to take care of him so he doesn't turn out to be a pirate like me." Garp gets pissed because he doesn't want to carry that burden after Roger's death, but we'll find out later if he agreed or not. Now let's go back to Luffy as he enters Log Town, a place full of nasty pirates. It's a city called the beginning and the end of the pirate world, where the One Piece story started. Fanny gives them money to shop, telling everyone to get whatever they want, but also warns them to watch out for the Navy soldiers because they're everywhere. And while they're standing there, they don't even realize someone been watching them from a distance. A little later, Smoker, the Navy commander who's got half the pirates scared and crying, arrives in town. He's holding Cuirass and Cayenne and hands him over to be locked up. Smoker asks about a girl named Chaji. The soldier says he hasn't seen her today, and Smoker warns him that the town is starting to gather a lot of Cuirassin, so watch out. He says he's going to patrol the town, maybe check the sea or something and bring the prisoner. Anyway, my friend, Chaji is a girl who looks exactly like Kuina, the one who trained with Zoro since they were kids. By chance, Zoro bumps into her while walking, and he already knew her too. He's looking for a place that sells swords, and when he sees one he says to her, "You look just like someone I know." She replies, "Let me help you, maybe you're lost or something." To avoid bringing up old memories, he keeps walking towards the sword shop. When he gets inside, he pays the man and asks how many swords he can get. The man says, "The last one's a knife, but come on buddy, let's wrap this up." Before he leaves, the man notices the sword he has and says, "Let me see that sword." When he opens it, he's really impressed and tries to buy it from him for a lot of money or trade it for 3 other swords. But he refuses because that sword is valuable. So she took it from Kuina after she died when they were kids. Then Chaji comes in, all happy because she saw the legendary sword. There's only one of those in existence and Zoro has it. When Zoro finds out she knows about all kinds of swords, he asks her to help pick out 2 old swords with him. Chaji gets super excited and goes to choose a sword with Zoro. But when she grabs one of the swords, she's shocked because that sword is cursed, and whoever holds it dies immediately. Right then, the shop owner comes in and says he's been wanting to get rid of that sword forever because of its curse. Zoro just eats curses like they're snacks at breakfast. So he suggests to the shop owner to do a strength test, and if he wins, he'll get the sword. Without any hesitation, Zoro throws the sword blade up in the air and catches it without even using his hand. The shop owner is impressed by his guts and says, "Wait a minute, I've got a sword you'll like." He goes and grabs one of the top 50 swords in the world. Zoro tells him, "I don't have any money, man, you know that." The owner says it's a gift since he wanted to trick him. Zoro accepts the gift, takes the 3 swords and leaves. At the same time, Luffy is looking for the platform where Roger's execution story happened, and a local pickpocket comes up to him and says, "I know." The place is called Dila and he actually goes there. Luffy's happy to see the platform, then he starts dreaming about getting one piece. But surprise, he runs into Buggy the Clown, his buddy, who says, "Hey Luffy, I missed you." Luffy asks, "How you doing now?" Luffy says, "I'm good, Buggy. So what show you got for me today?" Buggy replies, "I'm not here for a show, I came with a trailer that'll mess you up." Then he shows him the ship he attacked, caught the pilot and sent sailing into the Red Sea, setting the ship on fire. After Luffy sees it, he tells her, "Hey, wait a sec, Veda, but I gotta go now, I've got trouble waiting for me." She says, "Go use the bathroom." How did they get out? Luffy, "You're not getting out of here alive." Luffy spins her around and says, "You want another punch?" He reaches out and hits her, but when she hits back, she reverses his move. Luffy's shocked and says, "Did you rub Vaseline on yourself or what?" Veda suddenly realizes she ate something slippery, so no matter what he does, it doesn't affect her. Luffy says, "I'm gonna keep hitting you." Veda slips on the ground, grabs her hammer and hits him with it. Then Buggy and the rest of his crew show up and put sea stone handcuffs on Luffy. And that, my friend, is what cancels out the power of the devil fruit Luffy ate. So now, Luffy's just like everyone else. The average guy, who's both a smoker and a fighter, finds out about the execution platform, so they head there. They meet up with Nami and Usopp, then Sanji shows up. They learn from him that Luffy is missing and they can't find him. At that moment, they see everyone heading to the execution platform, so they follow along. Right then, Badgie and the Vinsmokes are holding a trial for Luffy, and everyone agrees he should be executed. Just then, Bay's crew arrives, and the Vinsmokes come out to face them. Nami grabs her staff and immediately attacks Vinsmoke, shocked that her hit doesn't even faze him. Zoro's got his swords out, slashing anyone who gets in his way, while Sanji kicks up a storm, knocking people flying, and Usopp joins in too. Nami helps to get rid of the poison. Imagine eating a fruit that gives you special powers, but then you lose because Nami took off the wooden sandal that was stopping her from slipping, and Usopp threw a pepper bomb at her, making her sneeze and stumble back into the teddy bears. At the same time, Navy soldiers arrive, and Smoker and Chaji are watching everything from afar. Chaji is shocked to find out that Zoro is a pirate, especially since she helped him and wants to join them. Smoker tells her the soldiers will wait for the Kurazumi to be killed, and then come down to mess with the leftovers. Meanwhile, Buggy is taking Luffy to the execution platform, planning to do to him what happened to Roger the Gold. Luffy confidently says that he will become. One day, the king of the Kurosna, after finding a treasure, gets pissed off and draws his sword to attack. Luffy calls out to his crew, telling them, "I'm about to die." But he smiles, a smile that shocks everyone because it's just like Roger's golden smile right before he was executed. Luffy keeps laughing hysterically, exactly like Roger did. At the last moment, lightning strikes the execution tower and Luffy comes out of it alive. Then he gets back to his crew and says, "What's the deal? A little lightning won't stop us. Let's get back to the ship." Then Smoker shows up and tells him, "Your place is here, Kuras and Luffy." Luffy takes. He's got the sword in his teeth and is walking away with the rest of the crew, but then they run into Chaji, who's standing right in their way. Zoro tells them to leave her to him and tells them to get back on the ship. Right away, Chaji pulls out her sword and attacks Zoro, but Zoro totally crushes her. He tells her he's gonna let her live because she reminds him of someone he cares about, then leaves her behind and walks off. Meanwhile, Luffy and Sanji run into Smoker. Sanji gets fired up and attacks, but surprise, Smoker's eaten the smoke fruit, which makes it so nothing can touch him. Luffy says no fruit can shake him and starts firing his rubber gun, but Smoker just stands there, totally unfazed. When Luffy runs out of ammo, Smoker talks to him. "So it's my turn now," and smoke starts coming out of his fist. He hits Sanji with it, sending him flying far away. Then he aims his other two fists at Luffy. When Luffy gets hit, he flies back and grabs onto the wall. He attacks Smoker but still can't do any damage. Smoker's last move is using his whole body to create smoke storms, playing with Luffy like a puppet. Then he tells him, "You're worth 30 million, but actually you're just $3, that's it." He pulls out a sword to kill him. Right then, Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, shows up and wants to take down the world government. He tells Smoker, "We have to let Luffy go and not get in his way." "Just so you know, my friend, that's what happened." He's been following them from the start and can control the storms. He's the one who saved Luffy with electricity on the platform during the festival, and he just saved him again, taking Smoker away and leaving. Sanji sees what happened, goes to Luffy, wakes him up, and they both quickly head back to the ship. Neither of them knows who the guy controlling the storms is. Chaji is sitting and drinking, trying to forget her defeat by Zoro. Then the guy with the rose sundae approaches her and says, "I feel for you, sister. Take this card and I'll help you get your revenge." After that, Sunday disappears. Commander Smoker comes in and tells Chaji to rest because he's going after Luffy's crew. They get caught the next day when Luffy and the rest of the crew arrive at the upside-down mountain. This is the start of their biggest adventure, where they'll face all kinds of dangerous monsters and powerful enemies. They also manage to find the One Piece treasure map and check it out. Nami realizes there's a lot of danger ahead because they'll be heading out to sea and it won't be easy. But she has a plan. There's only one way to avoid the storm, and if they follow it, they can all make it out safely. Everyone trusts Nami, and they climb the mountain, which is surrounded by broken ships and rocks that could easily crush them. The waves start beating them up, and Yasef struggles to keep the steering under control. Zoro and Sanji notice what's going on and rush to help Usopp. Of course, they break the rudder because they leaned on it too hard. Luffy uses his strength to get them through the rocks they'd have crashed into. Quickly, Nami tells them to raise the sail and they manage to get to the top of the mountain. But my friend, there's a house up there, so they decide to go down. They're happy they've reached the Grand Line and Luffy, about to make his dream come true. Suddenly, they hear the sound of a giant whale waiting for them at the bottom of the last waterfall, mouth wide open. Luffy attacks the whale and lets the rest of the crew get inside. Then Luffy passes out but wakes up on an island with the whale bumping into it. Luffy talks to the whale, telling it to bring the crew back, and when the whale says it'll kill him, Luffy lets it go. And he tells him, "Shut up, come on, are you free or what?" Luffy hears a voice beside him and says, "Look, what am I gonna do?" Then he hits that guy. The fish's toxin makes the fish fall into a deep sleep. Then Luffy approaches the man and finds out his name is Zazafran. Zazafran says he's been in this place for a long time and he's the lighthouse guardian. He's doing this to the fish because he wants to cross to the Grand Line. And if you're messing with your friends, just forget about them, Luffy. But all what Zazafran says is fake, because Luffy's crew is alive inside the fish on the ship and they're all fine. The first thing they suggest is to go look for a new rudder to fix the ship. Let's go back to Lookout, my friend, where Smoker is getting ready with Tashigi. So to track Luffy and his crew, they run into Galb and Kobe and Helmeppo. Smoker sends Tashigi to take Kobe and Helmeppo and let them rest while he talks to Galb alone. Galb goes with Smoker to the office and tells him, "Aren't you ashamed? That smoke of yours can't even catch a kid wearing a cloth cap." Smoker replies, "Man, this is serious, everyone knows about it." Then he says, "All right, I'm gonna head out now to catch Luffy and bring him back to you." Galb refuses, saying there are things more important than Luffy, like the fact that the Alabasta Kingdom is about to enter a civil war because their princess has been kidnapped. Plus, Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, wants to make a move against the government. In the world of Smoker, it's clear that Dracul is the reason Luffy keeps running away from him. Garp stands up and tells him, "No, we need to toughen up and I'll show you how an endgame looks." Back to Yusuf and Sanji. They're searching for a new rudder for their ship inside the whale. They board a ship and find a guy on the verge of dying, with a rudder that can fix their ship right under him. Yusuf gets encouraged and goes to grab the rudder, but suddenly the guy grabs his hand and says, "You're on the wrong ship." Then he grabs a metal bar and swings it at Sanji, but Sanji's quick. He kicks the bar away and sends it flying, then rushes to attack while Yusuf grabs the rudder. Sanji keeps going at him fiercely. For a second, but they're worried there might be someone else there. And sure enough, my friend, he's with another woman who attacks Nami, but Nami's tough and manages to dodge her hits. Just at the last moment, Sanji and Yusuf arrive with their friend, who's a hostage. Meanwhile, Zafran has locked his door and turned on all the music in the lighthouse because of the headache Luffy's causing outside his house. Zafran, not paying attention until Luffy breaks down the door. Luffy tells him, "I have to save my friends even if I have to get them out of his stomach." Zafran says, "There's only one way to get inside the whale, Labuan." "Yeah, my friend, the whale's name is Labuan, just like it sounds, Zafran." So it's all good. The important thing is Zafran talks to Luffy about the factory where Laboon sleeps, and Luffy knows they have to wait until Laboon comes back up to the surface. So he asks Luffy why he's treating Laboon like that and putting him to sleep all the time. Zafran tells him that a long time ago, he made a deal with the captain of the Rumbar Pirates, a guy named Yorkie, and Laboon was their lookout. Zafran was still young and followed them because of the songs they always sang on the ship. One time, he was sitting with Yorkie having a couple of drinks, and Zafran learns that if Laboon passes beyond the Grand Line with them, he'd die instantly from the monsters lurking in the deep. The sailor gets scared and has to leave Labuan with him, saying he can't bear to see Labuan hurt. Since then, Labuan keeps banging his head against the wall, hopping to get through it and find Yorkie with the crew. The reason is that Yorkie keeps scaring him every day so Labuan won't lose his mind while banging his head. Luffy tells him he knows the song Labuan used to sing because Shanks was singing it to him at the same time. Yusuf fixes the payment, and they find out the two guys caught by the Rex organization. At that moment, he remembers he put number 7, but it should be 9 and 10. At the same time, Galib and Smoker show him what happened at the naval base by the Rex organization and the users too. They use numbers to hide their identities, and most of the time Smoker tells them that their leader is number 0. Up until now, no one knows if it's a boy or a girl. Suddenly, she barges in and starts fighting, hinting at a picture of the flower girl named Sunday. She stands there a bit shocked because she's seen that hat somewhere before. Smoker orders her to go wait with Kobe and Flampio. When she leaves, Garp orders Smoker to track down the Wrath system and manage to catch someone from them, since that's the strongest guy they can rely on. Zoro remembers that he cut number 7 from their crew at the university, and the other 2 in the system are the ones making the commotion. They're number 9, and a girl named Wednesday. Suddenly, the whale at the port wakes up and starts showing off to the crew. Yusuf rushes after him, and Nancy has her weapon with her, so she frees herself using it. Meanwhile, Luffy is up top with Zafran, preparing the drug henna that they'll use to knock out Labuan. But this time, Labuan doesn't fall asleep because he's gotten used to the drug and it's like an addiction now. So Luffy has no choice but to fly toward Labuan and manages to get close. The first thing he does is punch Labuan, and Labuan gives him the same punch back, telling him to step aside. Inside Labuan, the crew manages to catch up to Yusuf before he falls, but they almost lose their balance. At the last moment, Nancy arrives just in time to save them, and everyone's surprised she pulled it off. With no other option, Luffy starts singing the song that the Yorkie crew used to sing. When Leben was little, he used to remember the sweet memories with his crew. Luffy tells him, "Our loved ones leave, Leben, but for sure one day you'll find others who love you even more. I need my friends, Leben, to make my dream come true." Leben listens to Luffy and opens the rest of his crew, gently bringing them out. Salam, Zafran is standing there, moved by what he's seeing and can't believe his eyes. They bring the whole crew over to Zafran's house, and Yusuf is fixing the door. They sit down and talk for a bit, discussing the 2 hostages they have, my friend number 9 and Miss Nazdia. Luffy tells them, "We're taking them with us to the island where they'll meet us, and we'll get closer there." Before they leave, Zafran gives them a compass they're supposed to use in the Grand Line because the magnetic field there makes a regular compass useless. Luffy takes 2 cans of Daman from him and goes to draw his emblem on Labuan's palm. That way, Labuan becomes Luffy's friend. Luffy promises he'll find Captain Yarkie's crew, the one who left him as a kid, and bring them back. Labuan's happy with what Luffy says and says goodbye. Meanwhile, Zafran heads to Dorm, an old friend of the Golden Man, and he knows Luffy is his son but doesn't tell him. Nami manages to locate the second island using the compass she got from Zafran. Meanwhile, Zoro is training on the ship, thinking about the only fight he ever lost against Draco. He keeps replaying the fight in his head but always loses. Then he snaps out of it because he hears Yusuf's voice and sees him catching a fish. Zoro goes to help him and takes the fish to Chef Sanji. While they're cooking, suddenly the weather outside changes. First it starts raining, then seconds later it's snowing. Everyone gets excited and goes out to play in the snow. At that moment, Luffy and his deputy Asdi come in. Asdi, who's the 9th Division commander, asks, "Why me, man? I got freed too." Luffy sits and thinks, and Nasty tells him, "Don't overthink it. We got freed and now we're heading to that island over there." So Luffy and the others are happy because they finally see their first island on the Grand Line. Nami goes to free number 9 and they escape from the ship without thinking much. They head to Cactus Island. When they get there, everyone looks at them like they're strangers and seems scared. Suddenly, they welcome them, and the mayor of the town comes to greet them and invites them to walk around a bit. Nami asks the postman how long he'll stay, and the magnetic field stabilizes. The mayor tells them they have to stay until morning, but only if they share stories about Joseph's adventures. The mayor says, "You came to my turf," and they all head off together. They're out drinking and having a blast with the rest of the town, while Yusuf keeps telling them about his adventures and how he's the boss. At the same time, number 9 and the Miss get out of the water at the Cactus Town. The Miss tells number 9 she's going to report number Mamani because they're late and he hates waiting for anyone. Then she tells him to go to Zor and get what's owed to our brother, number 7. Meanwhile, Nami is training over there, and whoever speaks first loses. Nami beats her with sheer determination and tells Yusuf she's going up to the top of the Cactus Mountains to draw her first island on her map. Rabba warns her that the place is dangerous and full of trouble. Nami says, "I love danger and trouble and I'm heading there right now." Luffy is lying on his stomach when Jerem comes over to him in the sweet shop and tells him, "Be careful, not all islands are as nice as ours. One day you might go to an island and they'll eat you up. And one last thing, take this advice from your big brother, don't trust anyone easily." Suddenly, while he's sitting there, Jerem comes in with Nezde. Luffy is shocked, but his shock grows even more when Jerem turns out to be number 8 in Rex's gang. Jerem's playing his violin while Nesde dances until Luffy faints. She goes to check on Jerem, saying their mission was a success, and soon we'll find out what it is, all at the same time. So there's this guy walking through town, and he hears someone whistling. He goes to check it out and finds a dude carrying what looks like a corpse, about to throw it in with some other bodies. Suddenly, that guy jumps out from behind the pile and tells him that they're killing the Krasna who arrive on the island, cause they don't like them. Soon after, the guy and his 2 friends kill them too and bury them in the Cactus Mountains like the others. Then Nami grabs her staff, hits him to knock him out, but his spirit is still awake, aware of what's going on, waiting for the other 2 to attack. He teaches them a lesson without even drawing his swords, then heads back to the canyon alone, like a fierce lion, a brave beast, ready to take down anyone who crosses his path. And that's when he steps in. Number 9 steps up and tells his teammates in the system that whoever beats Zoro will get promoted and earn their spot among the numbers. Everyone pulls out their weapons and gets ready to attack. Zoro puts on his work earring, draws his swords, and starts slicing through them one by one until he cuts down all of them with his new sword. But then some others come in through the door and manage to knock him down. Zoro gets pissed off and goes on a rampage, taking out the rest until only a nun is left. He refuses to kill her, so she blows poison in his face, blinding him and stabs him in the shoulder. Now Zoro sitting there can't see a thing, relying on his hearing, and the moment she gets close, he kills her brutally. He dies and hides from the others because they have weapons. Then a Drake appears in front of him and says, "Do you really think you can beat me when you can't even kill 100 guys?" Then he says, "Here, take this advice from a ghost, my friend. Try to get used to the new ships if you want to beat me." Zoro takes the advice and uses the ships together, making the most of their power because he can attack people from a distance. He climbs the stairs until he meets the Helmeppo in the organization and takes a hammer from him that lets him break through the wall. But the hit actually works in Zoro's favor because now he's facing the 2 guys holding back Usopp and Sanji, and he takes them out. In the blink of an eye, he frees his crew with energy, sneaks up on the guy waiting at the bridge, knocks him off, finishes him off, and keeps moving down Route 9. If anyone wants to take revenge on him, he can handle it. He's another member of the works system. Now, my friend, he's adapted to the swords and has killed 100 people with them. There's definitely gonna be another fight with Drake, and we'll see how that goes. At the same moment, Luffy wakes up angry because they tried to steal his ship. The criminals and Nami quickly escape in a candy truck, but Luffy grabs onto it and won't let them go. That's when Nami sees him and tells him to stop their truck by any means. So Luffy uses his hands and flips the truck over them. They're committing crimes, and N-City tells them they're doing it against their will. Suddenly, Number 5 and Miss Valentine show up, organized and tough, coming with orders from Commander Zero to take down the criminals in Rosia, plus Luffy and his crew. Number 5 sticks his hand up his nose and pulls out some crazy stuff, because eating Faka makes his brain go all explosive. Valentine can control her body weight, so sometimes she turns light as a feather, and other times heavy as lead. She flies over them and crashes down like a wrecking ball. Nami runs away and they head to the bay, escaping with them. Number 5 and Valentine chase after and track their location, but before they attack them, saying that Al-Azdi is her real name and that she's Princess Fifi. Luckily for them, the hit doesn't affect them and they come out unscathed. Then Mansadid explains that she joined a gang, and Rix is undercover with the criminals. Now they want to kill her because of that. Before they can think about leaving, a criminal shows up with a wooden stick in his side and tells Fifi to escape and return to Abasta because her people need her. But Mansadid is broken and doesn't want to let her go. Then the criminal introduces himself as Luffy and says he'll be the leader of the National Guard for Abasta City, and Mansadid is the princess. So, they have to get her back safely to Abasta to avoid a civil war. Nami seizes the chance and tells him, "We're not taking less than 1 million. This is the life of kings, man." Ugram agrees and says he'll stall the others so they can escape. Then he meets Number 5 and Valentina, pulling out his secret weapon, some machine guns hidden in his wig. This makes them run for cover like cockroaches, saving Luffy time, and the rest head back to the ship where Yosef Bosanji is waiting. When they get on the ship, the princess is worried about Ugram, and Number 5 is hurt. He blows himself up right in front of the princess, and Nami goes to comfort her because she's crying over Ugram's death. The next day, while they're sailing, the princess has a handkerchief with her. Aram ties her hair with a ribbon, praising the sacrifice Igram made to save her. She goes to introduce herself to Luffy, telling them her name is Vivi. She manages to uncover the identity of Zero, the leader of the Rocks organization, and insists that she must return to her father, the king, to share this information to prevent a civil war in Alabasta. Suddenly, the flower friend appears, attacking them from all sides. She is number 2 in the Rock's organization, and her name is Sandy. Everyone immediately grabs their weapons, but they don't know that Sandy is skilled with her hands in a special way. She disarms all of them, tossing their weapons aside and says, "I'm not here to kill you. If I wanted to, I could have taken you out ages ago, but I'm just here to chat and get to know this cool, stretchy kid named Luffy." You take his hat and say, "I'm not gonna kill you now. You're heading into Little Garden Island, and trust me, the dangers there are enough to finish you off. But I like you guys, so here's a deal. I'll give you a better compass than the one you have, and it'll lead you to an island with no hazards. You can hide out there, and even my system won't be able to find you." Everyone on board, but Luffy thinks differently. He loves facing risks. So he grabs the compass and breaks it right in front of her. Sandy laughs mockingly and says, "Fine, you're the loser. But just so you know, your friends aren't made of rubber." You go ahead and shout, and they all gather up. The only one who's scared is Yusuf. Vivi tells them, "I'm not risking my life, man. As soon as we get to that Little Garden Island, I'm leaving you guys and heading back to my city, Bassett." They actually reach the island and decide to explore because they've never seen anything like it before. Sanji and Zoro are in a parallel world, competing to see who can catch the biggest prey. They're the winners. Vivi stays with them because she has no other choice. When Yusuf sees the plants that eat people, he gets scared, leaves them and goes back to the ship. Later, Vivi notices he's gone and Nami reassures her. He definitely went back to the ship, and Nami knows that he'll return to the ship to check on her. Meanwhile, Vivi and Luffy keep going until they spot some prehistoric dinosaurs. Luffy thinks it's a game and wants to ride one. At the same time, Sanji and Zoro are hunting for prey together because of their bet, but a T-Rex dinosaur shows up, attacks them, and they have to fight it off. Back on the ship, Nami and Usopp are encouraging Luffy to come down to the island with them and not stay a coward like he always is. Suddenly, a giant man appears, drinks all their beer stock in one gulp, looks at Nami and says, "We've had a drink now," then reaches out to grab them all. All this is happening while Luffy's sitting with Vivi on the dinosaur, telling him about the city of Alabasta and how they ride ducks there. Suddenly, Luffy smells food and heads toward the scent. Sanji and Zoro have just taken down the T-Rex when they hear a strange noise nearby. Zoro moves toward the sound and is shocked to see a shiny figure following him from behind the trees. This guy can draw a yellow patrol car on Zoro and use it to completely control him. At the same time, Luffy reaches the source of the smell and finds a huge fish, which he starts eating. Obviously, this fish belongs to someone important, who surprises them from behind. Meanwhile, Nami and Usopp are waiting for their turn while the giant who captured them watches on. Panami is making soup and tells Yusuf to help her distract him while she looks for a way to escape. Yusuf talks to the giant and uses his storytelling skills, which always fool anyone. Meanwhile, Panami tries to run away, but the giant offers them some of his soup and says he loves hosting humans. He talks with them and introduces himself as Brogy, the strongest warrior among the giants in the city of Elbaf. At the same time, Number 5 and Miss Valentine arrive on the island too, aiming to kill Luffy and his crew as well as Vivi. But they're surprised when Captain Zero sends 2 crazy fighters to him. Number 3, who ate the wax fruit, and the other is my friend. It's definitely him who put the yellow circle mark on Zoro and took control of him. Anyway, Number 3 asks them for help after finding out that Luffy and the others managed to befriend 2 giants. He tells them if they help him, he'll stop Kaido from killing them. Meanwhile, Luffy is sitting with the giant he just met and learns his name is Dory, the strongest warrior in the Beast's pirates. Looks like there's some tension between Dory and Brogy, which we'll get into now. Then Nami and Usopp ate their fill and were stuffed when suddenly a huge, scary sound came from outside. Brogy reassured them that it was just the volcano, and according to their customs in the Beast's pirates, whenever they hear the volcanoes roar, they end up facing each other to the death, and this duel will be with Dory because they've been facing off for 100 years. All the matches end in a draw. You might ask me, my friend, why do they keep backing down? I'll tell you, they don't even know the reason themselves. It's all about pride. So Brogy steps into the fight, then goes after Yusuf and Nami. As soon as Yusuf leaves the cave, Nami feels like someone's there with her. It turns out to be the person following Number 3, who draws a symbol on Nami's leg, the same one he drew on Zoro's leg. Meanwhile, Zoro is sitting cutting pomegranates because he thought it was an easy opponent. Then he goes to Sanji and tells him, "I took down the T-Rex all by myself." While Zoro was cutting pomegranates, he wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying and kept laughing. Pastry Fusengi walked away and then came back to the ship. Zoro was still laughing when Valentine came down on him, and he couldn't resist her. She took him along with her. At the same time, Brogy, Nami and Yusuf arrived at the fight location, where they met Luffy and Vivi. They found out that the giants coming with them were the ones who were about to duel each other. At that moment, Valentine and number 5 were watching them from afar. It looked like Valentine had put something in the drink that the giants were sipping. Suddenly, the two giants started fighting each other. Then Brogy felt something inside him and smoke started coming out of him. Vivi noticed that. The glass that Brogy was drinking from was smoking, and that might be cheating because Dory is the one who gives the glass to Brogy. Fluffy tells them no way they'd cheat since they've been exposing each other for a long time, and none of them ever cheated. Then Vivi notices number 5, Valentine, standing far away. They know they're the reason what happened to Brogy. Fluffy immediately goes after them with Vivi, while the giant Dory doesn't know what happened to giant Brogy, so he attacks and wins the fight. He's been going strong with that horn the whole time. At the same moment, Valentine approaches Nami and walks with her, and she doesn't resist because of the mark on her leg. Yusuf falls off the mountain because of her power. After Yusuf wakes up, he goes to Dory and finds out that Jimma and Rex put a bomb in the beer Brogy drank. Dory gets mad because he lost the fight unfairly, so he quits and walks away. Yusuf decides not to be scared anymore because Brajima taught him that you have to be brave even in the toughest situations. He gets motivated and goes to save Nami. At Luffy's place, he sees a little girl crying on the road, so he asks her, "Queen, why are you just sitting here like that?" As soon as he gets close, she starts drawing on him like she did with Nami. Zoro and Vivi arrive too late and can't warn Luffy, and this girl is. Her name's Golden, and she took control of Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. Vivi runs away from her to get to the ship and warns Sanji about what happened. But suddenly, number 5 shows up, hits her and stops her from reaching the ship. Meanwhile, Dory goes to Brogy's cave, wanting to send him off properly. Suddenly, number 3 appears from nowhere, uses his power, throws a big punch at him, and pins his hand to the wall. That's because he ate the wax fruit, and its effect is stronger than the flames. Then he covers Dory completely with wax and puts him back in place. At the same time, Vivi wakes up and finds herself captured with Nami and Zoro, and notices that Nami and Zoro are in a terrible state. They're unaware of what's going on around them. At that moment, Fifi notices a mark on Nami's leg, so she moves closer and quickly wipes it off. As soon as she does, Nami snaps back to awareness. Fifi tells her that the mark belongs to Golden, who's number 3 in Ruck's gang, and that it creates a magnetic effect when it touches the skin. Nami tries to wipe the mark off Zoro's leg too, but he pulls away and keeps joking around. Then Fifi explains that they're at Cow Master 3, and that this guy has some kind of superpower. She tries using a wax statue to block it and hopes someone from their crew shows up soon. Nami thinks Usopp fell off the rock and jumps down to him. When Zoro asks about Sanji, he laughs and says Sanji must have gotten lost in the forest. Nami starts losing hope, but is sure Luffy will come to save them. Vivi tells her that Luffy is hypnotized like them. Meanwhile, Usopp is in the forest and accidentally sees Mr. 3 talking to Golden. Mr. 3 learns from Golden that Luffy is on the beach, so he quickly runs there. He finds Luffy, but doesn't realize Luffy is still under Golden's hypnosis. Even when he sees the mark on Luffy's face, he doesn't think about removing it. Instead, he keeps telling him that they need to hurry and save their friends. But Luffy is overwhelmed by guilt because of the mark on his face, and he keeps blaming himself for what's happening to his friends, thinking he might be the reason they die. So they quickly leave the place and go looking for Sanji to help rescue their friends together. On the way, he finds Sanji's clothes on the ground, stained with blood, and Usopp thinks that the Wreckers gang must have caught him too. Then Golden shows up in front of Luffy, pulls out her toys and starts talking to him, saying that no one wants to play with her because of her superpower. When she sees Luffy feeling down, she draws a green mark for him and erases the blue mark since it causes sadness. That's when Luffy starts trying to resist her influence but fails, ends up listening to her, and drinks the tea she made. Meanwhile, Sanji keeps searching for his friends in the forest until he finds the white cabin. He breaks in but finds it empty, so he sits down and sees files with pictures of him and the rest of Luffy's crew. The files have info about each person's strengths and weaknesses. Sanji takes the files to go find the rest of the crew, and just then, he hears the phone ringing. When Burn calls back, he finds himself talking to Mr. Zero, the leader of their system, and Rex, so he brings Sanji in to talk with him. Their voices are still changed so no one can trace the call. When Mr. Zero suspects he's not talking to one of their own, he sends 2 from the system, Freddy and Mr. 13. As soon as they spot Sanji, they start shooting at him. Sanji runs to the cabin and hides there. Once he's alone with Freddy, he breaks her neck in one hit and kills her. Then he goes back to continue talking with Mr. Zero and says, "Hold on a sec, sir, I gotta put you on hold." After putting him on hold, he fights Mr. 13 and kills him. He easily goes to continue talking with Mr. Zero and tells him, "You live in the 2 you sent." Mr. Zero gets angry, grabs the flower in front of him and makes it wilt. Here, we realize it's the devil fruit that can kill you with just one touch. Anyway, Sanji ends the call and goes to take the compass from Friday, then keeps going to find the rest of the crew. Meanwhile, Mr. 2 has taken Zoro, Nami, and Vivi and stuck them in a cake made of wax. Bellamy suggests that he and Mr. 5 finish them off, but Mr. 3 stops them because he wants to enjoy torturing the victims first and orders Mr. 5. He lights the candles on the cake, and then the wax drips onto the 3 of them to slowly kill them. Mr. 3 explains that they'll slowly turn into wax statues, which he finds the ultimate pleasure, watching his victims die right in front of him. But Nami notices that Zoro is the only one whose hand isn't stuck in the wax, and he also has swords with him. Using her smarts, she tells Mr. 3 that he's not really an artist because Zoro has fallen under hypnotic suggestion and keeps laughing. Nami's plan is to provoke Mr. 3 into bringing Zoro back to normal, and it actually works. Mr. 3 wipes the mark away from. At that moment, Zoro grabs his sword and tries to smash the candle but fails. Mr. 3 laughs and tells us she has to admit she's really an artist. Nami gets frustrated because her plan failed. Then we go back to Luffy, and Goldie warns him not to go into the sea because she knows if he does, he'll die immediately. But Usopp arrives just in time, calls out to Luffy, and asks him to resist Goldie's influence. Goldie gets angry and chases after Usopp, trying to get him under her spell too. But Usopp gives her a Cristiano-style move, runs away, and accidentally hits the colors, which splash right in her face. Goldie gets distracted because she's fallen under the spell herself. Damn it, and he won't be able to get rid of it. So Usopp runs to Luffy and helps him get out of the water. Then they hurry to save their friends, but when they get there, their friends have already turned into stone statues from the petrification. Mr. 3 tells Luffy that his friends only have 2 minutes left before they die because they still have a little oxygen trapped in their throats. Luffy stands in front of him to fight, but Mr. 3 runs into the forest like a coward. Luffy asks Usopp to save their friends no matter what, then he runs after Mr. 3 to finish him off. Meanwhile, Usopp finds himself face to face with Valentine and Mr. 5, who suggest having a fair fight and killing. One-on-one, so he chooses to fight Valentine first. Valentine's happy because she hasn't killed anyone in a while, and she's gonna enjoy killing him. As for Asu, he knows she's way stronger than him, but he still provokes her to make her hit him really hard. That's when Valentine's punches break the wax off Asu's friends. When that happens, Nami and Vivi jump in to attack Valentine, and a fierce battle breaks out between them. Meanwhile, Zoro decides to fight Mr. 5, but is surprised to find his leg still stuck in the wax. Then Asu helps him, hitting Mr. 5 with his spear. Zoro takes advantage of the chance, quickly gets free from the wax, and launches an attack on Mr. 5. And suddenly in the same moment, Nami and Vivi totally take over Valentine and knock her out. Then we head to Luffy, who's looking for Mr. 3. But when he finds him, there are a bunch of copies of him. So Luffy gets ready, clenches his fist, and starts hitting them all. Then he realizes they're just wax statues. After that, a bunch more Mr. 3 statues show up in the forest. Luffy gets overwhelmed and doesn't know what to do, so he decides to smash them all at once until he can figure out which one is the real Mr. 3. Just as that happens, the real Mr. 3 escapes and runs into Brogy's cave. There, he lures Luffy in and traps a hammer in his hand. They used wax to restrict his movement, and at that moment, Luffy sees the statue of Ruddy and gets provoked by Mr. Lathe, who tells him he was the one who did that. Luffy reaches his peak anger, gathers all his strength, and hits Mr. Lathe with a hammer attached to his hand. Mr. Lathe falls to the ground, knocked out from the force of the blow. Then Luffy sees the giant Dory stuck in wax and decides to free him. After that, Luffy goes back to his friends and is happy to find that they've been freed from the wax. Just then, Sanji shows up and gives Nami the compass he took from Mr. Fried after he killed him. Nami realizes the compass is pointing perfectly toward the Abasta Kingdom. Behind them is the giant Dory, who thanks Luffy for saving his life. Meanwhile, Sanji is shocked when he first sees the giant because he didn't even know the island had giants. After that, Luffy and his crew get on the ship and are happy to see Ruddy and Brogy making up. Then they say their goodbyes and set off towards the Alabasta Kingdom. Vivi is excited when Luffy tells her they'll head to her kingdom first, but they're all shocked when a giant monster rises from the sea. At that moment, Dory and Brogy team up and hit a massive wave so hard it actually pierces the monster's body. So Luffy and his crew pass through the ship, right through its inside. At the same time in the wax cabin, Valentine is blaming Mr. 3 because he's the reason all this happened. He didn't listen to her when she told him to finish off Luffy and pull him out quick. Then the phone rings, and Mr. 3 gets nervous, cause he knows it's Mr. Zero calling, and he's probably gonna ask what happened. If Mr. Zero finds out he failed the mission, he'll finish him off. Valentine tells him she'll answer and explain what went down, but he grabs her quickly and tries to turn her into a wax statue so she won't spill anything. Later that night, Luffy and his crew are eating together, celebrating their win over the organization. During dinner, Nami says Luffy is feeling a bit sick and goes to sleep in her room, but as soon as she reaches the ship's deck, she gets really tired and faints. Then, she calls Sandom Ward from the Works organization, my friend, while answering a call from Mr. Zero. It turns out he's giving her a specific mission. At that moment, she's sitting with a guy named Abel, the king of the Drums Kingdom, who's annoyed because Mr. Zero refuses to meet him and doesn't like that he's talking to Sandy. Sandy explains to him that Mr. Zero isn't available. The king, Abel, gets angry and tells her that he's been funding Works with a lot of money, and now it's time for them to pay for his help. Sandy replies to him, "Hey, king, calm down and chill." She gives him the devil's fruit and tells him it's a gift from Mr. Zero. The king and Abel get happy because they know anyone who eats this fruit gains superpowers. He asks Sandy what power he'll get after eating the fruit, and she tells him to eat it and find out for himself. Then she leaves. Now back to Nami. She wakes up and finds Sanji standing in front of her. She's shocked when Sanji tells her she's been unconscious for 4 days. She's even more surprised when she sees her arm turning completely black. But Sanji reassures her, promising they'll find a cure. He tells her to rest because she really needs it. Then he goes back to his friends on the ship and tells them that Nami's condition is serious, which means they need to find a doctor to treat her as soon as possible. Here, Vivi tells them that her kingdom is far away and they might lose Nami along the way, so it's better to stop at the nearest island they come across to get Nami treated. Everyone likes the idea and agrees to it right away. They arrive at an island called Rhodes, where there's a naval communications base. We see Smoker and Chiji arriving on the island. They're there to monitor the calls between members of the crew to figure out their location and catch anyone involved. We also find out that Smoker plans to hide any info he finds out because he wants to reach Luffy's crew first and take them down. While they're walking, Chiji stumbles over a soldier's body on the ground, and from the injuries, they figure out he was killed by a sword. Smoker guesses it was Zoro from Luffy's crew who did it, but he's confused and doesn't get why Luffy's crew would attack the communication base. Still, Smoker goes down to check out what happened inside the base and tells Chiji to report to HQ so they can send backup. When Smoker gets down there, he finds all the equipment destroyed. Then suddenly, in front of her was one of the Works agents named Sarasate, who knew that the Works agent behind her was the one who destroyed the communications base. He was using his superpower and quickly took out Sarasate. At that moment, Teiji came in and entered the commander's office to find him dead. Suddenly, a Works agent named Mr. 11 appeared in front of her, holding a sword. Teiji realized he was the one who killed the commander and the soldiers she had seen outside the communications base. Without hesitation, she attacked him and they fought, but Teiji managed to hit him hard and he fainted. Then Smoker came in and told her to go after another key Works agent, the ones who originally destroyed the communications base, and said she needed to find out more. The reason they did that is because, at that time, Luffy and his friends find an island right in front of them. Then Vivi tells them that this is the Drum Kingdom, and asks them not to mention that she's a princess from the Alabasta Kingdom. That's because the king and Wapol have a big conflict with their kingdom, and it could put her in danger if they find out she's there. Even though Vivi is scared, she tells them they have no other choice but to go to this island since it has good doctors who can treat Nami and save her from dying. Now, my friend, let's find out what the conflict between Vivi and the Drum Kingdom is, and we go back 10 years in time to when Vivi. When she was little, she'd go peek out the window at a global government meeting, where all the kings of the world were present, including her dad and the king of the Drum Kingdom named Wabel. The meeting was led by the chairman, talking about the danger of Dragon, the leader of the Syrian army, who was threatening the balance of power between the kingdoms. By the way, my friend, Dragon is actually following Luffy's crew and even saves them sometimes. We'll also find out that Dragon is Luffy's dad. Anyway, at the meeting, King Wabel didn't like what was being said and said he rules his kingdom with strength and that his people never doubt him. That's when Vivi saw her dad, King Cobra, objecting to what was being said. Wabel tells him that the king has to treat his people well, which makes the king angry. Wabel shouts at the king Cobra, and they start fighting. Let's go back, my friend. When Luffy and the others reach the kingdom of the drum, they get shot at from behind the door because the Karasna aren't welcome on their island. The heroine gets hurt in her shoulder, which makes Luffy furious and he wants to break down the door. But Fifi stops him at the last moment, telling him violence won't solve anything. Then Fifi apologizes to the guard and says they need someone to treat their friend. That's when the kingdom's door opens, and Dalton, the captain of the kingdom's guards, comes out and lets them in. They come in and apologize for what happened. Then Luffy says they need a doctor to treat Nami, their friend. Dalton tells them there's only one doctor in the kingdom because the king and his men took all the other doctors with them. This doctor's name is Kureha, and she lives in her palace at the top of the mountain. But the healer Maria warns them that Kureha is a witch and treats people in strange ways. Still, Luffy insists on taking Nami to Kureha for treatment. So he decides to climb the mountain with Sanji to get Nami treated. He leaves Zoro with Vivi in the kingdom, carries Nami on his back, takes Sanji along, and they start climbing the mountain, all to reach Dr. Kureha. Nami is being treated, but a really strong storm hits while they're climbing. Sanji is sitting on top of a mountain when Luffy reaches out, grabs his head, gathers all his strength and throws him to the mountain peak. Then Luffy climbs the mountain with difficulty until he finally reaches the top. By the time he gets there, he's exhausted and about to pass out. Suddenly, he sees a beast's legs nearby, but he tells it to save his friends no matter what, and then he faints. After a few hours, Nami wakes up and finds herself in a place like a hospital. She notices an IV drip attached to her arm and realizes she's feeling better than before. But she gets worried when she spots Sanji lying on the bed in front of her. Suddenly, a little gazelle walks into the room. His name is Chopper, and as soon as Nami calls him, he gets scared and hides from her but still keeps an eye on her from a distance. At that moment, Dr. Kureha shows up and tells Nami that she's the one who treated her, reassuring her that she's getting better. She explains that the illness Nami had was because she got bitten by an insect that transmitted a deadly infection. Then, she starts discussing Nami's condition with Chopper, who clearly knows a lot about medicine. Kureha asks Nami about Sanji and Luffy, wondering if they're okay. She tells Nami that Sanji has 2 broken ribs but she took care of him and treated him. Before Nami goes to sleep, she asks about Luffy, just as he bursts in yelling that this lady is crazy. She wanted to introduce them to the monster she's been raising. Sanji wakes up to Luffy's voice, but doesn't really pay attention. He gets happy when he sees Nami's feeling better. Then, Kureha explains to Luffy that she was treating her, and Luffy feels sorry. That's when Luffy realizes his mistake, checks on Nami, thanks Kureha for taking care of her and apologizes for how he treated her. When Luffy sees Chopper, he's amazed. Nami says she feels like she hasn't eaten in days, so Kureha tells Chopper to show them where the kitchen is, and they start cooking with what they have. Sanji leaves, and Luffy starts preparing the food, but they notice Chopper watching them from a distance. They call out to him to talk, but he refuses and stays hidden in his spot. Then Luffy sees the cross of world inside the box in front of him, and as soon as he touches it, Chopper gets angry, takes it away and puts the box back. After that, Chopper leaves, walking away sadly. At dinner time, Luffy asks Korea why Chopper is upset and what's his story with the cross of world inside the box. So Korea starts telling them Chopper's story, and we flash back a few years. Back then, Korea was running from the king's soldiers because they were capturing. The doctors see, the king keeps them locked up in his palace just to treat him and no one else. At that moment, we see a doctor named Luke hiding next to her, trying to avoid the king's soldiers. It becomes clear that Kureha and Luke have very different views, and their argument even turns into a fight over how to treat patients. After that, they each go their separate ways. Luke notices some strange footprints on the ground that keep getting smaller and smaller until he finds Chopper stuck on his arm. Luke moves closer to help him, but Chopper is scared and pushes him away, resisting until he eventually passes out. The next day, Chopper wakes up to find himself lying in Luke's bed. Luke asks about his health and is shocked when Chopper responds like a human. Luke gets closer and asks if he ate the devil fruit or not. Chopper says he doesn't know because he was hungry and didn't realize what he was eating. He also tells Luke that he turns into a big beast when he gets angry, which is why humans hunt him and shoot at him, but when he calms down, he goes back to normal. Luke understands that the devil fruit he ate gave him superpowers. When they ask Luke about his family, Chopper says he doesn't have one because his tribe abandoned him due to his blue nose. Luke feels sorry for him. He decides to raise him, be his friend, and teaches him lessons about medicine and how to gather herbs from the forest. They keep doing this together for a while until one day, Burr asks Luke about the painting of the skull hanging on the wall, and what's the secret behind the red fruit drawn on it. Luke tells him that he used to be a pirate and caught a deadly disease, but he was cured the moment he saw a cherry fruit in front of him. Since no one would believe him, he kept that secret to himself and decided to put the cherry plant on his skull painting. That's because he sees the painting not as a symbol of death, but as a symbol of fighting disease through plants and herbs. Luke keeps doing that. He's had a lot of experiences because he wants to find a cure that can heal everyone from all diseases, but all his attempts keep failing, and he keeps searching for a new formula. One day, they're both coming back from the beach together, and suddenly, Luke asks Chopper to stay away from him because he saw him and doesn't need him in his life anymore. Chopper is shocked. He can't believe what he's hearing and doesn't want to leave Luke. But Luke leaves him, goes inside and slams the door in his face. Chopper breaks down and begs him to open the door, but Luke cries and asks for forgiveness. At that moment, Chopper walks away with a broken heart. The next day, Chopper is watching the house from the rooftop and is surprised when Kureha checks on Luke because Luke has contracted a fatal disease and is close to dying. That's why he asked Chopper to stay away. He doesn't want Chopper to be sad watching him die. Luke asks Kureha to take care of Chopper after he's gone and to continue his experiments until she finds the cure that can save everyone. Even though Kureha feels sorry for him, she doesn't like how weak he's become. She tells him he's not going to die just yet, and that it's better if he keeps working on the cure himself. The next day, Luke resumes his experiments to find a cure that can heal any disease. After many attempts, he finally succeeds in discovering the cure. At that moment, he's surprised to see Chopper come in, even though he's hurt and reckless, holding that enchanted mushroom everyone's been talking about. Chopper tells him he went to the Valley of Death and brought back the mushroom to help him feel better. He thanks Chopper for caring and hugs him. Then, he eats the mushroom and says he was scared but now he's recovered. However, he still needs to go to the king's palace to check on his fellow doctors there. As he's leaving, Kureha shows up and asks about him. Chopper tells her he's heading to the king's palace. Kureha's surprised he's out even though he's sick, and Chopper explains that he got better after eating the mushroom he gave him. The cursed mushroom. Kureha tells him that Luke's illness has no cure and asks to see the mushroom he was given. Chopper flips through his book to the mushroom's picture and explains that Luke said the mark means it fights the disease. Kureha gets mad and tells Chopper he's got it wrong. That mark actually means the mushroom is poisonous. Chopper is surprised and doesn't believe her, pointing out that Luke took the mushroom from him and healed himself with it. Kureha shocks him by saying Luke sacrificed himself so he wouldn't upset anyone, especially after Chopper risked his life to get the mushroom from the Valley of Death. She also warns that Luke is going to take a huge risk. He risked his life to save his doctor friends from King Wabel's hands. Meanwhile, Chopper was crying and running to check on Luke. At the same time, Luke had already reached the palace, throwing cannons at the soldiers and taking them out until he got to King Wabel's headquarters. Luke confronted the king and begged him to free the doctors so they could treat the kingdom's people. But King Wabel refused and ordered his soldiers to execute Luke immediately. Right then, Luke stopped them and told Dalton that a monster was about to show up, so they needed to watch out and not kill it because it would be his son. He explained it was a peaceful creature that wouldn't hurt anyone. Right after that, he pulled explosives from his bag and risked his life. King Wabel laughs mockingly and Dalton goes off to take out Luke's son, Chopper. At that exact moment, Chopper arrives at the king's palace, and as soon as he sees Luke's hat, he realizes that Luke is dead. So furious, he transforms into a giant monster, ready to attack King Wabel. Dalton grabs him and calms him down, explaining that his father asked him to look out for him and tells him to go back to his hideout so he doesn't waste his energy. Chopper is moved by this and leaves the palace, running back to Luke's house. There, he asks Kureha to teach him medicine because he wants to become a doctor, just like Luke wanted. And that, my friend, is the whole story. Here's the story of Chopper. Let's jump back to the present time. After Kureha finishes talking, she notices that Luffy and his friends are moved. Luffy gets up and goes over to Chopper, then pulls out the notebook belonging to Luke and hangs it on the wall. Chopper is amazed when he sees Luffy's arm stretching out so far. He tells Luffy that he also ate a devil fruit and turned into a monster just like him. Luffy asks Chopper not to lock the world back into a box and urges him to fulfill Luke's dream and heal all humans. Chopper smiles and promises to listen to him. Meanwhile, Dalton is standing with Zoro and Usopp. At that moment, Dalton notices that smoke is coming from the middle of the mountain, so he figures someone's camping there. Even though no boats have come to the town, Dalton decides to head up the mountain to find out what's going on. Before leaving, he tells Zoro that the kingdom and its people are in his hands until he gets back. Meanwhile, Vivi is walking around town, handing out her gloves to some kids who are feeling cold, doing it in a really sweet way. But then she's shocked when she sees Sandy from Rook's gang standing among the kingdom's people. Suddenly, Sandy disappears into the crowd, so Vivi goes looking for her until she finds her and asks, "What's in it for you helping a crazy guy like him?" Mr. Zero tells her, "Sandy, this is something between me and her, and you already know that Wabel ate some devil fruit and turned into a monster. Plus, he's got a bunch of soldiers that no one can stand against." He asks her to show how she and Luffy's crew will defend the people of the kingdom. Then leaves. Back to Dalton, he arrives at the camp in the forest. As he gets close to the smoke, 3 arrows hit him and he falls to the ground. It turns out that the king's men, Wabel's soldiers, are the ones who shot him. They take him to King Wabel's camp. Dalton is shocked to see that Wabel has turned into a metal monster and then realizes that he ate from the devil's fruit, and anything he eats, Abel can turn it into a weapon for himself. So Dalton turns into a monster too, to fight Abel, telling him that he doesn't deserve to be king of the kingdom anymore. But Abel stabs him in the shoulder with his weapon and summons his army of mutants to wipe out the kingdom. At that moment, Zoro and Esp see metal monsters approaching the kingdom, so they rush down to warn the people and hide them. Then Vivi comes in and tells them what Sandy said from the Works organization, and they realize that the monsters coming are actually soldiers of King Abel. So Zoro decides to defend the kingdom like he always does. Dalton asked and told Usopp to go get Luffy and the others from the top of the mountain, but Vivi said she'd go instead so they could stay as the 2 strongest. Dalton gave her Usopp's bow, which he invented, to help her climb the mountain easily. Vivi managed to get up there, and when she arrived, she told them what was happening in the kingdom below. Luffy decided to head down immediately to save the kingdom from Wapol and his monsters. Meanwhile, Koala asked Chopper to get ready to run away because they couldn't handle Wapol's army, but Chopper refused, saying he had to do his duty and protect the people of the kingdom. So she leaves Korra and walks alone. On her way, she runs into Dalton, who's injured. At first, she refuses to help him, but when he tells her about Luke who died, she gets affected and decides to help him, healing his wounds. Back in the kingdom, the monsters are controlling the battle so much that one of them is about to kill someone from the kingdom. Suddenly, Dalton shows up and saves her at the last moment. Esp is watching everything and is surprised that Dalton has turned into a monster too. Then, Dalton sees another monster attacking Maria, who's with him and from the kingdom, so he attacks and kills that monster. At the same time, there's another monster holding Esp. He was about to kill him, but Kira has showed up just in time and shot the monster to keep it away from Osa. Let's go back to the palace on top of the mountain, where we find out that Wapol sneaked into the palace through a secret passage to get to Luffy's crew. He decides to throw a bomb at the Kurasan world and starts it up, but Luffy flies through the air and takes the blast in his body, so the bomb doesn't hit the world. The crew gets really upset about what happened to Luffy. Wapol calls him crazy because Luffy sacrificed his life for a world that's meaningless. Then Wapol is shocked when he hears Luffy's voice coming through the smoke, and he tells Luffy that this world means something super important for Chopper and his buddy Chopper, so he has to save him. Then he stands in front of Wapol to face him. Wapol pulls out a saw from his hand to cut off Luffy's arms, but Luffy doesn't care and dodges all Wapol's attacks. Unfortunately, Wapol traps him with his weapons and it looks like he's about to finish him off. Right then, Sanji sticks out his leg in front of Luffy, so Luffy grabs his leg and pulls himself back to a safe distance. Then he lets go and hits Wapol with a really strong blow, sending him flying out of the palace, and they take care of him. Meanwhile in the kingdom, all the monsters surround Zoro and the villagers, but they're shocked when the monsters start losing their powers and turn back into their human forms. They surrender to them, which means Wapol is done for. He died and they got out from under his control. Everyone in the kingdom felt relieved, knowing they could finally live in peace. Then Korya went to check on the doctors who had been slacking off at Val and told them everything was over now, and they had to start immediately treating the kingdom's people for their illnesses. After that, Korya took Zoro, Dalton, and Usopp, and they headed to the palace through a secret passage. There, they met Vivi and Luffy and were shocked to learn that Luffy had managed to defeat Val and save them from his evil. They were even more surprised when Luffy introduced them to Chopper, and they suggested bringing Chopper onto their crew since they needed a doctor. Chopper was really happy about that. Because someone loves him and decides to join them, he goes to Chopper to say goodbye to Kureha and thanks her for everything he learned from her, then leaves. At that moment, Dalton thanks Luffy and all his friends because they saved the kingdom's people from danger. Then Luffy and his friends are surprised when Chopper comes in pushing a cart and asks them to hop in so he can help them get down the mountain and head to the ship. At that time, Dalton opens the palace door for them and says goodbye before they leave. As soon as they reach the ship, Chopper is really amazed because it's his first time ever on a ship. As soon as the ship starts moving, Chopper looks out at the kingdom explains it to him one last time, and he tells Esp that this happened to all of them at first. Then Nami goes to him with the bag she gave him. Korea and Chopper get excited, open it, and find a small colorful ball inside. When Nami asks what the ball is, Chopper says it's a secret but promises, "Don't worry, my friend, we'll find out what it does later." And well, my friend, we'll definitely learn about it in the third season because this is the last episode. Meanwhile, Dalton goes to Korea with the cannon she requested, looking surprised and asking why she needed a cannon. Korea tells him that Loki invented a medicine that can heal everyone. Then she takes out a ball containing the medicine and puts it inside. The cannon fires, and then they aim it and shoot that ball into the sky. At that moment, the whole sky gets covered with this cherry blossom powder, and the powder falls everywhere across the kingdom. That's when Chopper remembers what Luffy said about the cherry blossom flower that can heal any illness. He breaks down and starts crying. Zoro comes over, picks him up onto his shoulder to calm him down. Meanwhile, the crew is enjoying the beautiful view around them. The next day, Luffy and his friends throw a party to welcome Chopper to their team. It's clear that Chopper is really happy with his new friends, but Nami notices Vivi is sad because she has to go back to her kingdom while they continue their journey. Back then, Luffy reassured her, saying that nothing would happen until they completely defeat the rocks and save her kingdom first. Vivi was happy when all of Luffy's friends confirmed this because she finally felt like one of them. Now, my friend, let's get back to Smoker and Chiji. They managed to trace Mr. Zero's call. Sanji and Chiji recognize Sanji's voice, and they find out Vivi is with them. Surely, Mr. Zero will be mad at her since she now knows his real hobby. Smoker and Chiji decide to head to the Alabasta Kingdom to find out the information Vivi gathered. And finally, my friend, let's go to the Rocks organization where Sandy and Rude confront Mr. Zero. Zero updates him with the latest news, and also, the King and Abel are no longer available because Luffy's crew took them out. It becomes clear then that Mr. Zero is actually Sir Crocodile. He tells Sandy to get ready because the next battle will be in the Alabasta Kingdom. That's when he calls her by her real name for the first time, and we find out her name is Nikki Robin, and she's wanted by the law too. Not just any number, but 79 million bounty, meaning she's a ninja. Sandy gets mad and tells him to stop calling her by that name, but he calms her down and says everything they've planned will happen. He also says they're about to start Operation Utopia right away. Utopia. So my friend, this is the code name for the war on the Pasta Kingdom. Crocodile continues and says that if this operation doesn't succeed, they'll reach Lex and Basil. Just so you know, my friend, the organization Works is located under the sea and is surrounded by crocodiles. The season ends here for me. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm one of those people who's eagerly waiting for Season 3. If you're waiting too, let me know in the comments.